The current governor of Missouri is a Democrat named Jay Nixon. Governor Nixon is in his second term, his final term. He can't run again. With Jay Nixon leaving, Republicans see a real chance for a possible pickup of that governorship in Missouri, and so the Republicans have been very excited. They're having a wide open and rambunctious primary for that seat already. 3 declared candidates so far, maybe more on the way. One of the leading Republican candidates who jumped into that race for Missouri governor was the Missouri state auditor. His name's Tom Schweik. He just won re-election as auditor in November. He won with 73% of the vote to get a second term as Missouri state auditor. Right after he got re-elected this last month, Tom Schweik announced that he would be running for governor in 2016. Now, the primary is not until August of next year, but Republicans in Missouri are excited about this, and it has already become a really tough race. Last week, a group called Citizens for Fairness put out this rather brutal radio ad against Tom Schweik.
Elections have consequences. Tom Schweik? Like him? No. Is he a weak candidate for governor? Absolutely. Just look at him. He could be easily confused for the deputy sheriff of Mayberry. But more importantly, he can be manipulated. Schweik is an obviously weaker opponent against Democrat Chris Koster. Once Schweik obtains the Republican nomination, we will quickly squash him like the little bug that he is and put our candidate, Chris Koster, in the governor's mansion.
So, House of Cards-themed, rather vicious ad, and what is already a rather vicious Republican primary for Missouri governor in 2016. Well, last weekend, the state Republican Party in Missouri held their annual confab. They call it Reagan-Lincoln Days, Republican convention in the state. Tom Schweik came in second when they did a poll of party leaders for the governor's race. At the Reagan-Lincoln Days thing, they also tried to poll not just the leadership, but all the attendees, the hundreds of party members who attended the event. They wanted to do sort of a straw poll for the governor's race. Weirdly, for the straw poll, somebody stole the ballot box. Party leaders say the ballot box for the straw poll went missing overnight. When they finally found it the next day, it had been stuffed for one of the candidates. For a straw poll. Yeah, so rough and tumble, strange times in Missouri Republican politics right now. That was already the case. And then yesterday, strange turned very, very tragic. Yesterday morning, 9:41 local time, the editorial page editor for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch saw his phone light up. He'd been getting calls and text messages from Tom Schweik for days. Mr. Schweik was calling once again yesterday morning. The editor, it turns out, was busy at a speaking engagement, so he let the call go to voicemail. This was the voicemail.
Tony, it's Tom Schweik calling. If you can have a reporter here at my house at 2:30, I'm willing to speak to both the Post-Dispatch and to the AP only about this matter. I would give a brief prepared statement, which we would videotape, and then can answer questions from your reporter. This is only for you two, and I hope you'll not make it known that I'm doing this. But give me a call and let me know if you can have somebody here at 2:30. To me, this is more of a religion story than a politics story, but it's your choice on who the reporter is. Thanks. Bye-bye.
So Tom Schweik leaves that message on the phone of a local editor who he knows and he trusts, saying, send a reporter to my house. I'll see you at 2:30 this afternoon. Keep this to yourself for now, but I'm ready to talk. 2:30 this afternoon, be at my house. He left that message at 9:41 a.m. And then at 9:48 a.m., a 911 call was placed from Tom Schweik's house. Because right after leaving that voicemail message, apparently less than 7 minutes after leaving that voicemail message, Tom Schweik took his own life. He died of a single gunshot wound to the head, and what police are describing as an apparent suicide. Why do you tell people that you want to set up a meeting and then minutes later kill yourself? Why do you set up something for the afternoon and then minutes later kill yourself? Why did he kill himself? What did he mean to say? The 2 reporters he reached out to that morning say that Tom Schweik had been talking to them about a rather intense allegation, specifically against the Missouri Republican Party chairman. They say that what Mr. Schweik was alleging was that the Missouri Republican Party chairman was basically engaged in a whisper campaign designed, allegedly, to undercut Mr. Schweik's run for governor by letting it be known that he had Jewish ancestry. Now, the idea of that kind of a whisper campaign is a serious and troubling charge, especially given what happened. That charge was answered this morning by the Missouri Republican Party chairman. He wrote an email to members of the Republican State Committee. He said, quote, "I would like to set the record straight once and for all. Until recently, I mistakenly believed that Tom Schweik was Jewish. While I do not recall doing so, it is possible that I mentioned Tom's faith in passing during one of the many conversations I have each day. There was absolutely nothing malicious about my intent, and I certainly was not attempting to inject religion into the governor's race, as some have suggested." Tom Schweik was not Jewish. He was an Episcopalian. He did have some Jewish ancestry in terms of one grandfather being Jewish. But what he alleges is that there was a whisper campaign against him in the state to hurt his chances of being the nominee of the Republican Party of Missouri for governor or getting elected governor in that state, with what he describes as a derogatory whisper campaign that he was a Jew. Now, meanwhile, what happened in this case with this apparent suicide has been so shocking and so unexpected and so mysterious that the St. Louis Post-Dispatch editor who got that voicemail not only made the decision that he would release that recording publicly, that's why we could play it for you tonight, but he also published a summary last night of what had been off-the-record conversations he'd had with Tom Schweik over the course of this past week. The editor writes, quote, "I have no idea why Tom Schweik killed himself, but he says Mr. Schweik, quote, made it clear that he wanted those allegations about the whisper campaign against him, he wanted those allegations made public." Joining us now is Tony Messenger. He is the editorial page editor of the Post-Dispatch. He received that voicemail from Missouri Auditor Tom Schweik before Mr. Schweik apparently killed himself. Mr. Messenger, thank you very much for your time. I know this has been a very difficult 24 hours for you.
Thanks, Rachel. Good to be here.
Did I, in summing up what's happened, I know I didn't touch every piece of it, but the parts that I did describe, did I get them right? Was I inaccurate at all?
No, you were very accurate. Okay. You described the events as I know them and how they've taken place since Thursday morning.
You have described Mr. Schweik as being, and other people have described him as well, as being an intense person, a highly strung person, a person who had a personality that seemed, I'm paraphrasing, he was a guy who seemed amped and intense a lot of the time. If that was his baseline, did he seem materially different over the course of this week? Did you see signs that he was really agitated?
He was definitely agitated. He was deeply offended by what he thought was the intent behind what the political consultant was doing, the chairman of the Republican Party, but not in a way that was out of character for Tom. I mean, he was a guy who opposed corruption, and I think that was one of the reasons why we bonded. His job as auditor and my job as editorial page editor found themselves frequently on the same page in terms of the types of things that we saw in Missouri government that we wanted to fix. So he was angry and he was agitated, but not so much that it was out of character. I've listened to that voicemail probably 20, 30 times now, and first time I listened to it, and most of the politicians in Missouri that I know that have listened to it tell me it sounds like Tom Schweik.
When you described how he told you about, how he talked to you about his concerns, he was concerned that the chairman of the Republican Party was telling people that he was Jewish and that this was intended to hurt him politically, to prevent him from mounting an effective campaign for governor. With respect, was that in your view, was that a paranoid or I guess, irrational fear? Or is there something to, is that a well-founded suspicion of his in terms of what the effect of that kind of information might be?
I believe that it wasn't irrational, that there is a history of that sort of thing in Missouri politics, that if you look at the history of the Republican Party recently in Missouri, that it is not a party that has a very big tent. And Mr. Schweik operated in that party at the highest levels over the last 6 years. And he knew what he was talking about. He was quite confident that what was happening was intended to damage him in a Republican primary where a very specific type of voter tends to be the most active voter as compared to a general election. Tony
Messenger, the editorial page editor of the Post-Dispatch. I mean, you took on a lot of responsibility, a public responsibility to do right by this story and right by Mr. Schweik in bringing this information public that otherwise would have been off the record. I'm sure that wasn't an easy decision. And this is an intense time for you. Thanks for being with us to explain. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks.